we're finishing the chapter today. Im Yirtzeh Hashem B'li Neder. One way or the other, your guys are not going to stop me from finishing it today. Page Tes Zayin. And now we're holding at our favorite character throughout the Tanya. It's the Rasha V'Raloi, the bad guy. Let's see how the Alter Rebbe deals with the bad guy. So we are on Tes Zayin, page Tes Zayin, opposite page 30. And it's smack in the middle of the page. It's 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 lines. 12 lines from the bottom. Okay? V'yesh, the word begins with v'yesh. V'yesh means...
So does the problem.
That's right. That's why in Tanya, chapter 46 begins with the word v'yesh, with a vav. Hasidim say that really the vav is unnecessary. It should have began the chapter with the word yesh. But the Balatanya didn't want to begin a Perek in Tanya with the word yesh, ego. So he changed, he added the vav. That's a vart from Hasidim. It's a beautiful vart and probably a true vart. So that's what you said now, Hillel, reminds me of that. But let's learn. V'yesh mi shehara goyver b'yoyser. There is an individual where the bad dominates even more so. U'mislapshim boy kol shloisha levushim shel hara. And in this case, the bad of this individual invests itself in all the three garments, not just in one out of the three, as we've discussed before, by the Rasha B'Tovloi, by the wicked one who has some vestige of good. By him, it's either here or there, right? By this fellow, Rasha V'Raloi, he has bad in thought, in speech, in action. Everywhere and anywhere, the man is messed up. Al Kapanim, his garments are messed up, are not in an appropriate place. And the Alter Rebbe adds, not only does the Yetzer Hara, the bad inclination, impact him by doing light type of sins, easygoing sins, like, not getting up on time to say chveis, whatever, all kinds of issues that are not so terrible, sin-wise, but by this fellow, umachtiyoi ba'aveiros chaburis yoser. The Yetzer Hara gets to him to do very bad avedas, the most stringent and bad avedas. Number 2, uve'itim kreivas yoser. And to do them closer to each other. In other words, we need to say, by the Rasha of the Tovla, we said, number 1, on page 30, we said that they're not done constant, they're not done often, and they're done, from time to time. The Alter Rebbe employs three words denoting time. Because there's a Gemara that says that the Yetzer Hara is, I think it's Gemara in Sukkah, the Yetzer Hara is first a holech, a walker. Then the Yetzer Hara is an orach, a guest. And finally, the Yetzer Hara is ish, the person. And what does that mean? That initially, the Yetzer Hara just comes in once in a while, he comes to visit you. He's a holech. How you doing? I want to check it out. Right? Then he gets more friendly. The Gemara says he becomes your regular guest, your regular Shabbos guest. Every Shabbos he needs a meal. The Yetzer Hara has a place every time to go. And then he creeps in so much into the person that he becomes a ish. He becomes part of your home. He's taken up residence in your home. He starts off with visiting you from time to time. He goes to the second stage of being a regular guest, and he ends up saying, I live here. So the Alter Rebbe, when he uses those three words on page 30, when he describes the bad that there is by a tzaddik v'toivloi, the vestige of bad that still exists. He says he comes lo b'tmidus, not constant. V'loi, and he says v'loi todir leprokim, not often. Ela li'itim rechaykis, from time to time. That's by a tzaddik v'toivloi. The opposite is by a tzaddik v'raloi. So let's go back now to page Tezayin, where the Alter Rebbe says now, umachtia ba'averes chamurais, yoser uve'itim kroivim yoser. It's not like he comes once in a while and he says, do this hardcore sin. He's constantly coming to you every day and saying, today do this sin, tomorrow do this sin. Much more constant. Nevertheless, I'm sorry, I told you wrong shot. This is still talking about, please forgive me. This is talking about a tzaddik, a Rasha v'toivloi. This is another type of Rasha v'toivloi. Until here, we spoke about a Rasha v'toivloi who's not visited so often by the bad. Now we're talking about a Rasha v'toivloi who is visited much more often. So we're not yet talking about a Rasha v'raloi. Hold on, we'll get there. So he says, nevertheless, in between, during the intervals between the visitation of the Yetzer Hara, mischaret, the person has regret, and he has thoughts of tshuva. Isser, notice the words. It doesn't say ubayim loy tshuva. He's not doing tshuva yet, this fellow. He's saying to himself, maybe I should do tshuva. That's called avi hirur tshuva. So in other words, Moshe, what is the content of this individual's regret? It's not that he's saying, here, I'm giving back the stolen money. I'm stopping to speak Lashon Hara, real Lashon Hara. No, he's saying to himself, I'm sick and tired of speaking Lashon Hara. Maybe I should stop. That's what we're talking about. Okay? That's why we call it hirhurei tshuva. Thoughts of tshuva, not actual tshuva. Where does this come from? If he's a Rasha and he has only a little vestige, the Alter Rebbe says that's exactly it. It's coming from that little vestige of good. It comes from the good within his soul. That overpowers the Yetzer Hara from time to time. Ella, however, he doesn't have enough strength, enough dominance, to overpower the bad, to completely separate himself from total sins. In other words, this describes most of us. Most of us, we mean well. We don't want to do the Aveira. It bothers us, but sometimes we just don't have the koyach to overcome. And he doesn't have the koyach. The Alter Rebbe says, liyasmoide v'oizev, to admit and to forsake. He cannot get over it. To say, I acknowledge this is no good for me, and I'm leaving it. Avek. Gamarnu. Finished. He doesn't have that koyach yet. That's why Avram, he's considered Rasha. Because what is the dominance by this person? The Rasha part. The Tov part, the good within the Rasha, is subservient, is secondary, is ancillary. And therefore the sages say, very beautiful quote, Rishoyim mileim charotis. Now, the wicked Rishoyim are full of regret. Now, how do you, according to Chazal, understand that statement? It's it's a negative statement. They're always saying, I regret it, and then they do it again. Right? The Alter Rebbe here, look, the amazing interpretation and twist by the Alter Rebbe is using it in a positive way, that same statement. Shehem roiv rishoyim, most wicked people, sheyesh b'chinas toiv b'nafshem adayin. They still have a vestige of good. The Alter Rebbe is saying, rishoyim, even though they're rishoyim, and most are rishoyim, meleim charotos, they're full of regret, and that regret is great and important. So the Alter Rebbe's spin on the Chazal, right, is a positive one. It's not to be taken as a negative one as you understand it regularly. Oh, here, once again. It's like, with your kids, you know how it is, once again. I gave you a chance. We're doing it again. Once again. You don't really mean it. If you really mean it, you wouldn't do it again. The Alter Rebbe says no. The Alter Rebbe says this is the inherent makeup of this individual called Rosh V'Toivle, who we are. So in other words, it's such a beautiful thought. Don't be down. Don't feel down. I failed again. The Alter Rebbe is saying you can expect to fail again, but as long as you get up and you say, I want to do tshuva. I want to stop my ways. And that's a very important mindset. In other words, do you look, just one second, Avi, do you look at failure as who you are, and therefore there's no hope? Or do you look at failure as a stepping stone to success? Avi, what do you want to say?
That I sort of see psychology in a similar way, that a person feels guilty about doing wrong. And the psychologist very often takes it as his role to make that person not feel guilty, erases the guilt for the person. But erasing the guilt for the person is bad because if he feels guilty, he did wrong, then maybe he'll want to do some kind of tshuva on that action that's making him feel guilty.
So what you're saying is that what the Alter Rebbe is saying is not good. That's what I'm hearing you're asking. Is that what you're asking?
No, what the Alter Rebbe says is good. The fact that he has charata and he feels guilty is good because that'll make him want to do tshuva.
Right.
That's what the Rebbe is saying. But the psychologist is saying, "Oh, I'm going to make you not feel bad. It's don't feel bad that you did this, or don't feel bad that you did that." And that's bad because then it throws him off balance and doesn't allow him to come back to the right situation.
Right. Okay. So I hear you, and I understand. I'm adding just maybe one twist, and what I'm adding to that is that there's another position of soul, another position, and that is that the purpose of feeling guilty is not to make you feel that you're a loser and a failure and gone goodbye, but rather that it's a stepping stone for that you can think about doing tshuva. So in other words,
right, I agree. I said it not in his words, but
right.
What I understand.
Yeah. You know, what you said is correct. What you said is correct. So we're just clarifying that. Okay, let's continue. Now,
Rabbi, you talking about the Hirurei Tshuva? Like if someone has Hirurei Tshuva?
yes, Hirurei Tshuva, and we said you weren't here before, but Hirurei Tshuva doesn't mean, and the Alter Rebbe is saying that is what's most important by the average person, i.e., in this case, the Rosh V'Toivle who can become a Beinoni, that he should have the Hirurei Tshuva. And so as Avi said, Hirurei Tshuva incorporates. You have to know I did something wrong. If you don't accept responsibility and saying I did something wrong, you won't really have a Hirurei Tshuva. It's baloney. When we say regret, and I don't want to spend time on this, but I think everyone here understands. Regret means you really feel you did wrong. It's not just a lip service, I'm sorry, all that. It's narishkeit. Now, the fact is that we fail. But we fail, if we really do have regret, then we fail once, we fail twice, but there's going to be a time you're not going to fail. There'll be a time when that tshuva will come from you and it will be emes. It's like the Rebbe told Rabbi J.J. Hecht when he was dealing, with people came to him, their kids, were marrying out, and, in the 60s and 70s and during the whatever. And he came to the Rebbe crying and he said, Rebbe, I can't anymore. I counsel and my heart goes out for the parents, Yiddish parents and their kids. And the Rebbe said, your job is to talk, to listen and to talk, and to listen to talk. And Hashem at the right time will throw something in to your mind and to your mouth that you will share, and that will get the kids to keep marrying Jewish, on and on and on. Why am I saying that? Because charata, hirhuri tshuva, as long as you're an active participant in hirhuri tshuva, in wanting to do tshuva, you will do tshuva. We will do tshuva. And that's what the Alter Rebbe says here. Rishoyim Meleim charata as a positive, not as a negative. Not as, it's baloney. Here we go again. No. We're talking about that the person really wants to do tshuva, and at the last moment, the Yetzer Hara gets to him and he doesn't. On the next day, get up and try again. Let's continue. And here we talk about the Rosh Hashanah. Finally, the last 5 lines. Most of the chapter is about the Rosh Hashanah. Someone who never has charata, who never does regret, and it doesn't enter to his consciousness thoughts of tshuva. Forget about actual tshuva, even thoughts. This individual we call nikra rasha v'raloi. A rasha and bad is to him. Why? Shaharasha b'nafshay. Because in his state of being bad within his soul, hu levadoi nishar b'kirboi. It alone remains within him. Ki gover kol kach alatoi, for it has dominated so much over the good, achenistalik mikirboy, until the good has kind of left from within the person. Where is this good? Where did it go? To Disney World? No, it didn't go to Disney World. It's there, but not Bekirboy. It's not inside Avram. It's Omed Olav. It's standing on. It's hovering over him. Makivol of Milmaila. So Moshe the Alter Rebbe says here a fantastic thing. It's still hovering over the Rosh Hashanah. It's not as though we hear in the communities, he's a guy, she's a guy. No, they're still a Yid. But their neshama, their Yetzer Tov, is not Bekir boy, not inside, meaning it's not being internalized, it's peripheral. But peripheral it is. And look at the last line, and we spoke about this in the first year. Therefore the sages say, Kol be'asara, upon all 10 Jews, when they congregate together, Shchinta Sharia, the Shechina dwells. I don't care who they are and what they are and how they are, etc. 10 Jews in a room, as long as they're born to a Jewish mother who had a good conversion, they're Yidden, and therefore the Shechina's there. How could that be? How could that be that the Shechina should be there? If the Toiv left them, if the good left them, says the Alter Rebbe, but that's exactly the proof. The Toiv didn't leave them. The good never left them. It left their inside, but it's always there. And this is the Shita of the Balatanya, and this is the Shita of the Chabad Lubavitch, right here. This is where it begins. We see it now 250 years later with putting on tefillin on the street and lighting the mitzvahim and everything that Lubavitch does. but it begins right here in this chapter 11. So if you ever need to, someone questions you, wants to know, you take out this chapter 11, the last 5 lines, and say, read this. What does it say over here? So if you have a taina to the Alter Rebbe, and it's not even a taina, there's no complaint. What's the complaint? The Alter Rebbe is quoting Gemara in Sanhedrin. This is a Gemara in Sanhedrin. Al Kol Be'asar Shchin Tashar is a Gemara in Sanhedrin. So you have a taina, you have a complaint, go to the Gemara. And there's no reason for a complaint. That's his point. Why? Because Take inside, Bikir boy, Nistalik. It says the word Nistalik. Avi, the Alter Rebbe here is not kind of, he's being, what's the word? He's being apologetic. He's being apologetic. He's making up an excuse. No, he's telling you loud and clear. By Arosha, Veraloi, the Toiv, 1 second, Moshe, the good within him, Nistalek. Nistalek means been removed, but he adds the words, Mikir boy, from inside. V'oimed olav, b'pchinas makiv olav. It's hovering over him. So no, it's associated with him. And that's why, as long as it's associated with the individual, there's hope. And there's always hope. Yes, Moshe.
Okay, I want to ask a question, controversial question.
Please.
So we were in shul a number of Shabbos ago, and there's someone who was in shul who was clearly, very obviously a guest of somebody's, and the person had an outside appearance of someone who one might think might not be fully mitzvah observant.
Okay.
So someone said to me, came over and said to me, I went over and I asked the host, the person figured out who was this host, he said, I asked him, is he Shomer Shabbos? So clearly the person was trying to hit me.
What was the point of the question?
Huh?
Moshe, what was the point of the question?
Hold on 1 second. So because that person was hinting to me the question of whether or not to give the person an aliyah. So I instinctively looked at him and I said, don't be ridiculous. What difference does it make?
Thank you.
So the host, the person said to me that when he asked that question of the host looked him in the eye and said, well, he is now, he is today, he is right now Shomer Shabbos. So the person who was saying this to me, bringing this up to me, was bringing it to me because I think he was a little bit not sure what to do. But I said to him instinctively, I said, don't be ridiculous, Anyway, he said, the person said back to me, he said, well, why are you telling me about I'm being ridiculous? That's the halacha. So I just walked away. Anyway, I came home, and we have in the house, it's very new, this collection of shilas and shubas for shluchim. So I went and I found this issue, and I looked it up, and sure enough, there's many different, a brief but very concise write-up of different types of situations. So I'm bringing this up because in the shilas and shubas of the shluchim, it listed a whole bunch of different, scenarios, and in order to not give the person an aliyah, he's got to be really it has to be. It looked to me like it's going to be somewhat extreme circumstances. But I'm bringing this up, the whole issue up, because I have, for some reason, in my notes here, when I learned this a long time ago, like with Rabbi Uri Kaplun, that I have some little star here by the last line here. It says, why do some, and I wrote it's in my handwriting, obviously, why do some Jews only want to make a minyan with Shomer Torah only? So I'm raising the question, I'm really bringing this up because I'm just trying to understand. I'm reading, I get the words, obviously, of what the Alter Rebbe is telling us. But clearly, somewhere, there's something that says that there must be some sort, when we see that the Shekhinah hovers, the Shekhinah sure rests upon, when there's 10 Jews, Are there any qualifications? Are there any qualifications to that, or what's the
Moshe, can I just say, I was asked to stop giving aliyahs to people wearing shorts, and I said, Baruch Hashem, that they're coming into the shul instead of playing basketball. But I don't, the Rav asked, so I did. But
I think today, you're not learning with Rabbi Uri Kaplun 20, 30 years ago. Today you have a white.
Rabbi Kaplun did not, I don't know why this is here, and I'm sure he wouldn't espouse, to be so.
Yeah, but listen for a second. Today, you're a gabbai in a very frum shul. There's a rav, in just like Isser said, if the rav in his shul says that he doesn't want him to give aliyahs to people without shorts, he has two options. One, to not be gabbai. Three options. Two, to leave the shul, or three, to just listen. The Rav establishes what the minhagim and halacha of the shul is. That's, everyone knows that. So number one, Moshe, the first thing is you need to talk to the Rav. Or you and this other person should go over together to the Rav. Now, if the Rav will say, I leave it up to you, Moshe, I leave it up to the Gaboyim. And there are some Rabbanim that will say that, for whatever reason. So then, there's another issue. This isn't a Lubavitcher shul. This isn't a Chabad house. And if the collective audience of the shul wants that you should only give aliyahs to Shomer Shabbos people, that's a strong consideration. Now the question is, do we know, like you said, right now he's Shomer Shabbos. I didn't see him driving here. You know what I'm saying? But what if someone comes and says, I saw him park his car 2 blocks away? And I had this in Marin County. I actually, even though we had a very small minyan, it was almost a full Shomer Shabbos minyan because they lived in the area. There was some Baal Tshuva, and so maybe you had 1 or 2 people, and they parked, and they were from the old country, from Bialystok, they weren't from yet, for whatever reason, So there are many considerations in your situation that you're echoing that I can't answer. That's something local, but overall, so in other words, this isn't a Chabad shul. So a Chabad shul has its policies and its approach, and which is, by the way, different than a Chabad house. A Chabad house is another animal. There's so many variables here that it's not one answer for everyone, and that's why you say in the Shalos Tshuvos for the Shluchim, you see different answers. But what I could say is, as a general point, that a yid should be looked at favorably. Zachin la'adam shalei b'fanav, we find danas kol adam l'kafschus. Danas kol adam l'kafschus. And that's a very important principle. How to apply it, you have to know the ground rules, and with the rabbi, and it has to be worked out. But overall, in other words, what I'm saying is the attitude that, he's a bad Jew and he shouldn't be given an aliyah because he's not fully Shomer Shabbos. He's not fully Shomer Shabbos, but you have bad midos and you cheat on your taxes, and so b'meila, you can cheat on your taxes. That's not a big sin. But him driving in a car, who says there's a difference? If the law of the land is not to cheat on your taxes, and you do, you're violating halacha, so you shouldn't be given an aliyah. Again, so it becomes a very sticky thing. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I say there needs to be kind of. So you as a gabbai shouldn't allow an individual to delegate and how it's between you and the Rav. I would think that's the answer. It's between you and the Rav. And as far as what,
I think there's another.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that there's another question, Moshe, in terms of the scenario, is that the person who raised this question, where was the question raised? Was it raised in the Beit Knesset? Or did he say, can you step outside so I can ask you a question privately? Or was the question raised in front of other people?
No, it was raised in shul, but in a private manner, between him and myself.
Right. Would that
You're talking about the host, but the person who approached the host, where was that done?
In shul.
Yeah,
also,
so that
also in a private manner.
I want to say that I'm what you said, Isser, surprised me a lot because you daven in Boston and they allow you to give aliyahs to people wearing shorts.
No, it was.
No. But what I'm saying is, how did you even think they would allow that? That's what I'm curious.
It was on Shabbos afternoon in the summers. There was a group of boys.
Oh.
For mincha.
Oh.
That would come for mincha, and if you knew our community, these boys would be outside playing ball, and they would stop to come to shul. And
this is Highland Park, remember?
Yeah.
Oh, this is not in Eretz Yisrael. You're talking America.
No.
Oh, okay. I was thinking in Bet Shemesh.
No. But it was the Boston School in
right. I understand. I understand. Listen, I to be honest. To be really honest,
I wanted to give chizuk to these kids.
I understand. I understand. To be honest, when I'm in a shul with everyone who's like kind of frum and doing, and someone comes in, with shorts, it's bothersome. It's like that no one's here doing this. What you do in your private, do whatever you want, or go to another. But in this shul, we don't. You see, no one else is doing. And Dafke comes in this way. Dafke. And I discussed this with some people in the shul. I'm talking about my son's shul in Coral Springs. And they said, look, he knows our position. We do not condone this. But at the same time, we're not going to tell him he can't come to shul. If he's such a, jerk, that he Dafke has to come to shul this way, that's the way it is. So again,
these were teenage boys that go to the day school. That their families are they're